Hi, room 41. We are going to be working on our metric measurements of length still. Last time you had a lesson with me, we talked about all of the measurements that are less than 1 meter. We learned exactly what 1 meter looks like, and we talked about all the measurements that are less than 1 meter stick. So if I take 1 meter stick and I divide it into 10 pieces, those are called decimeters. If I take that same meter stick and I divide it into 100 sections, we now have centimeters. And if I take a meter stick and I divide it into 1,000 little pieces, those are called millimeters. Let's look at the left side now of the meter. Let's think bigger than a meter. So we're going to be talking about things like decameter, hectometer, and kilometer, or some people pronounce it kilometer. So let's think now. Let's go back to that middle section and let's look at meter. Remember, meter is our standard. We use the meter stick every time, and we think, are we going bigger than a meter or are we going smaller than a meter? Okay, so pay attention to which way we're going. Are we doing measures that are greater than 1 meter or smaller than 1 meter? The first one on either side, you take a meter and you divide it into 10 pieces and you get decimeters. But if you take a meter and you multiply it by 10, in other words, if you have 10 meters, you have a decameter. Now, deca and deca, very similar words. Be very careful, okay? Decimeter is smaller than a meter. Decameter is 10 times bigger than a meter because deca and deca both mean 10. After that, if we take a meter stick 100 times, 100 meter sticks laid end to end to end 100 times, we call that a hectometer. That's quite a distance, isn't it? Now, if we were at school, we would try and see how long a hectometer is, but we don't have space in our house and 100 meter sticks to do that. So we have to imagine what a hectometer would look like, 100 meter sticks laid end to end. And if you really want to think big, think kilometer. Think about a kilometer as being 1,000 meter sticks laid end to end. A kilometer is greater than a mile. Because we know a meter is greater than a yard, we also know that a kilometer is greater than 1 mile. So if you know about how long 1 mile is, if you go on walks or bike rides, a kilometer is slightly bigger than a mile. So those are our larger units of measure with meters. 10 meter sticks is a decameter, 100 meter sticks is a hectometer, and 1,000 meter sticks, 1,000 meters, is a kilometer. All right, let's go on. It's time to push our thinking even further. I'm going to ask you to convert one unit of measure to another, and we're going to keep referring to this chart. In fact, I have it on the Smart Document camera for you, so you can keep referring to it during this lesson. But we're going to start converting from one unit of measure to the next, okay? And I will be here to help you out all through this. Let's take a look at our pictures here. Okay, think. Everything is based on 1 meter. Look at number 6. He's measuring her height. Would you measure someone's height in meter sticks? Think about it, 1 meter stick and then 2 meter sticks, and already she's probably going to be beyond just 1 meter, but 2 meters is going to be too big. So, should I measure height in decimeters, maybe tenths of a meter stick, and count how many decimeters she is? Should I measure her in centimeters? Think about that. If I measure her in centimeters, what would that look like? Let me show you again, to remind you what a centimeter looks like. Okay, a centimeter is from 1 to 2. Would I measure somebody's height in centimeters, or would I measure it in decimeters, or should I measure it in meters? If you're measuring someone's height, you would definitely measure in decimeters. Okay, look at number 7. I want to measure the distance from Chicago to New York going through Pennsylvania. So, again, what unit of measure would I use? Would I use a meter and say 1 meter, 2 meters, 3 meters, all the way from New York to Chicago? Could I use 10 meter sticks at a time and call them decameters? Need bigger? Okay, how about hectometers? 100 meter sticks laid end to end. Would that even get you out of your neighborhood? Probably not. I think we need to measure in kilometers to see how many kilometers it would be from Chicago to New York City. How about a quarter? What unit of measure would you use to measure a quarter? Are you going to use a meter stick? Of course not. That's way too big. Are you going to use a decimeter from 1 to 10 to measure a quarter? Or are you going to use a centimeter? Maybe it's 2 centimeters wide. Maybe it's 3 centimeters wide. How big is a quarter? Would you use centimeters or would you use millimeters and count every little line and see how many millimeters a quarter would be? A centimeter might be close, and they're saying it's 2 centimeters, or we would use millimeters to be really exact. So centimeters or millimeters for that one. How about the width of a track around? Usually that's around a football field. This track running around this football field, what would you use? Would you lay down meter sticks and measure that? Would you measure it in decameters, 10 meter sticks? Maybe it's 2 decameters. If you lay down 10 meter sticks and then 10 more meter sticks, that would be 20 decameters. What do you think? Width of a track in a football field. Or would you do a hectometer? To get as accurate as you can, I would say you would use a decameter, 10 of those, and then if you need 10 more, maybe then 30 of them, or 40, because if you're going to jump to hectometer, you're automatically going to have to make sure that there's at least 100 meter sticks. I'm not sure 100 meter sticks, I don't know if it would be that wide. So I would probably use a decameter. How about a pencil? What would you use to measure a pencil? If I laid my pencil down against this ruler, am I going to measure that in a meter? Of course not. That's way too big. Am I going to measure it in decimeters? There's 10 decimeters. Oh, there's 20 decimeters. That's pretty close. Or should I be really exact and measure it in centimeters? All the way up until I get to, it looks like it's just at 19 and a little bit bigger than 19 centimeters. So I would use centimeters for that. How about if this kid is trying to jump this high? What would you use? Meters? Always start with meters and think, would I use a meter stick to measure that? I think a meter stick would be pretty good. I think that's how they measure them actually in the Olympics. They talk about how many meters they can jump. They might say 3 meters and 10 centimeters. Or they might just add them all up into centimeters. But I think a meter stick would be a pretty good one. How about the height from the floor to the doorknob? The height from the floor to any typical doorknob. Would you use a meter stick there and just stand it up and see? I think so. And if it's less than a meter, then you would just look at the centimeters and see if it's 100 centimeters or 90 centimeters or 80. How about the length of your sidewalk? Would you lay meter sticks down? Depends on how long your sidewalk is. I would think just laying a meter stick down and measuring how many meters it is would be great. All right, let's try some. Let's keep going back to our chart and referring to it, okay, so we can figure this out. How many meters are in 1 kilometer? How many meters are there in 1 kilometer? Well, a kilometer is 1,000 meter sticks. So how many meters are inside that kilometer? Yes, there are 1,000. It says right here at the bottom. There are 1,000 meters in a kilometer. Okay, let's do the next one. How many millimeters are in 1 meter? Well, let's go find meters. How many millimeters are there? Remember, this is 10 parts of a meter. This is a meter divided into 100 parts. This is a meter divided into 1,000 parts. So how many millimeters are in a meter? There are 1,000 millimeters equals 1 meter. Let's try another one. Oh, how many centimeters are in 2 meters? How many centimeters are in 2 meters? Well, there's 100 centimeters in 1 meter. So how many centimeters are in 2 meters? Yeah, 200. If there's 100 centimeters in 1 meter, there's 200 centimeters in 2 meters. Okay. Oh, how many decimeters? Careful now, that's deci with an I. So let's go back to our chart. Decimeters. How many decimeters are in this meter? Remember, this is divided into 10 pieces. There are 10 decimeters in 1 meter. So this chart is really useful, okay? I like to refer back to it when I'm answering questions. Oh, went too far. All right, how about this question? 1 decameter equals how many meters? Oh, now I've got deca with an A. What was the question again? Let me go back and look. 1 decameter equals how many meters? Well, a decameter is 10 meters. So my chart gives me my answer. A decameter is 10 meters. Oh, John's book is 16 centimeters wide. How many millimeters is that? I might get my ruler back out for this one. John's book is 16 centimeters wide. How many millimeters is that? His book is 16 centimeters wide. Let me use a marker so I don't write on my whiteboard. It's 16 centimeters wide from here to here. That's how wide his book is. How many millimeters is that? Oh, well, let's see. There are 10 millimeters in each centimeter. So right in here, from here to here, that's 10, 20, 30, 40. You see how you can do that? There are 10 millimeters in each centimeter. So how many are in 16 centimeters? Do you want to keep counting? 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 110, 120, 130, 140, 150, 160. There are 160 millimeters in 16 centimeters. So I converted from centimeters to millimeters by knowing that there are 10 millimeters inside each of these. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, and so on. So you can convert from centimeters to millimeters. And the last question. Marcy drove 63 kilometers. How many meters is that? She drove 63 kilometers. How many meters is that? Well, let's see. 1 kilometer is 1,000 meters. And she drove 63 of these. So 63 kilometers is 63 times 1,000 meters in each. So how many meters did she drive? 63 times 1,000 is 63,000. Because we're taking 63 times 1, and that's our 63, and then for every 0 I have in a factor, I put a 0 in my product. So 63 kilometers is 63,000 meters. That sounds like a lot of driving. It's 63 kilometers, which is slightly bigger than 63 miles. All right, boys and girls, your rest of your math class today is going to be on compass. You're going to be doing an activity on there for measuring and converting metric units of length. So that's where you'll continue your lesson. After that, if you need to review this again, you're welcome to come back and watch the video again to help you, but they're going to give you some instruction on compass before you begin. All right, that's where you're heading next, guys. See ya.